Well, I think you want me to tell you a little bit about, from my perspective, about the First World Romani Congress in April 1971.
Yes, please.
I had known for about 2 or more years that Grattan wanted to organise something on those lines. It was rather a fluid concept, put it like that. It was it, it was an ambition, and I met Grattan. I can't remember where I met him the first time that he talked about this. I'd already known him since 1967, I think, or 8. And anyway, we met in, it may have been at Donald's flat. I went there about 3 times. Anyway, we went out together. It was a nice morning. I remember that. We went out together and we walked around the shops. I can't remember if it was Ladbroke Grove or Notting Hill, but it was in that area. And Grattan told me, I remember this distinctly, that he was looking for a venue to hold the First World Romani Congress, and it was presenting enormous problems because, you know, hotels were not really suitable, too expensive, and he wanted some British and Irish travellers to be there, and we needed space and so on. It dawned on me, I was working at Cannock House school, and I was very friendly with my employer, who was Mr. Baker, who owned the school. I wasn't that friendly, I was an employee, but I mean, he and I had a good rapport. So I said to Grattan, maybe I can get round Mr. Baker and he might let us have the school in the Easter holidays. And Grattan said, oh, that would be fabulous, you know. Anyway, I went back to the school, and when I had a suitable moment, I asked Mr. Baker about this, bearing in mind that around the Chelsfield and Orpington area at that time, there was absolutely horrendous anti-Romani, anti-traveller feeling. It was really bad. There were headlines in the Orpington Times with wording like, and this is word for word, it's all out war against gypsies. Every week there were letters or articles about travellers and their iniquities, which mainly boiled down to a bit of litter. But anyway, there was tremendous ill feeling. There was also a group of people who went out every night in cars and threw bricks and bottles at travellers' trailers on the Orpington bypass, on the green at Badger's Mount, and various other locations, Crittle's Corner at Foots Cray, which had been being bombarded every night for years. I got hold of Mr. Baker one day shortly after this, when he seemed in a very good mood, and I put it to him that it would be a Romani Congress there. I thought he would just say no, out of the question. Parents will be removing their children from the school and so on. But he didn't. He thought about it and he said, well, bring Grattan down here and we'll talk it over. So that was very heartening. I told Grattan, and he came down to Chelsfield and we walked round the the extensive grounds with Mr. Baker, and he said, yes, okay, we can do it. So that was fantastic. There wouldn't be anybody living in the school over the Easter holiday. Mr. Baker's house was nearby, in the grounds. And anyway, that's how it happened. Gretton immediately began organising it, sending out invitations and things. I was rather worried because I, I was doing the catering for the Congress, and I had no idea really how many people would be there. So it was very difficult ordering enough food for everybody and not wanting much over, coupled with the fact that I wanted to go into the different sessions at the Congress because I was very interested naturally. But unfortunately, I was in the kitchen a lot of the time. It did go okay, I think, from my point of view. There were a couple of mishaps. People upset me, but they weren't actually Romanies who upset me. They were Gorgie people who were a bit demanding. But I think the whole thing achieved what it set out to achieve, in the sense that it was the foundation stone, really, in the UK anyway, of the international Romani movement meeting together. It was important because it laid the foundation stones for congresses after that. It was the original one, and I think it was important because it established links, personal links between Romani leaders and traveller leaders. Not so much here. There were a number of local travellers who came along. Tom Lee came with his wife and daughter. They had a trailer in the playground. Peter Ingram came. After the Congress ended, as far as I'm aware anyway, there was contact maintained by Grattan and the other leading figures. So that paved the way for things that came afterwards. It seems very strange now to think that it was 50 years ago, or nearly 50 years ago. It doesn't feel that. And if you doubled it back 50 years, it would have been 1921. So that gives you some kind of perspective on it. And yet Grattan's still going strong by the look of him, and you're still going strong by the look of you. Sadly, Donald isn't with us. I believe Derek Tipler died many years ago. And Dennis Mariner, he was another person who was very active to begin with when Grattan started. He died very young, at 38. I remember you went to his funeral, didn't you, Thomas?
Yes.
At Bromley. Jim Penfold was meant to be coming, but didn't come. I remember that too. I don't actually remember Jim Penfold. Oh, yes, he was there. Of course he was. Yes, he was at the Congress. I went to the pub with him. I remember that. That was where I really got to know Tom Lee quite well over that long weekend and bank holiday. I also made good friends. Well, started making good friends with Janko Djarkovic, I don't know if I pronounced his name correctly. He was a nice fella, and he wrote the Romani anthem, didn't he? Yes, amazing memories. Anyway, I think maybe that's about all. When it ended, um, I was very worried that the school might be boycotted locally, but I don't think it really affected the school very much. There were some parents who weren't happy about it, but there weren't any pupils there, so it didn't matter really from that point of view. Um, yeah, well, I think that's all I can tell you really.